So for the last little while, you've probably noticed I've been building a lot of shape type builds. That being, of course, the burnt house, and I've also been working on some other ones, all with a very cool shape, and it's actually been something I've been pretty interested in as of late. I've been loving the look and detail of pretty broken down buildings. Like, there's so many cool little elements that can be added, and I wanted to try that out, specifically in the form of a silhouette. So I saw some really cool concept art that was kind of like a cityscape but more dystopian and spooky looking, and it was something that really interested me. And so I wanted to give it a go. So without further ado, let's cue a very quick little time lapse, and then I'll be able to show you the build at the end and kind of discuss what I've been doing. So yeah, let's get into it. So I thought I'd kind of try and explain my building process during this time-lapse section. So right at the start you can see I used magma blocks to do the basic shape of the build, and then I started to do all the detailing. I just needed to get a good idea of where I should build, where everything could kind of pop out, and then I'll go straight for the build like I do usually. I realised pretty early on that it was actually kind of a little bit too big, so you'll see me a bit later moving it all the way down. You can also see the original colour scheme that we went for, which in the end did not work, and I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end. And yes, so now I'll let you enjoy some of the music because it's a bit of a bop. We'll talk soon. So we finished the build, and I hope you enjoyed the time lapse and the whole build, and let's go have a quick look at it now. There it is. So as you kind of like was seeing, and as I was kind of saying, I was really trying to experiment with shape and shadows and, well, silhouette, just like this. My main focus was kind of trying to get that shape that looks like a factory or a half-built tower, and I think I did pretty well. The idea I was kind of going for this was more of a dystopian, rundown, broken down world. Like, I just imagine an entire horizon with all of these just silhouettes and buildings, and as you can see, they're also not very accessible. And that's only because this is genuinely just meant to be a background. Because you've probably seen it in a lot of my previous builds, I've just been enjoying building backgrounds quite a lot recently, and this is definitely no exception. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at what I've done here. So we've got a lot of very detailed blocks, but we've only really got one block palette, and the main kind of block that we decided to use was this nether brick, and that was because it's one of the only blocks, or the only block I think, that has the wall and the fence variant. It's also the darkest of the fences and the walls, and it makes this silhouette stand out a lot more, especially because I've gone for a warmer background. Now, the fact that this block having a stair and slab and wall and fence variant was very important because we've got some really cool little details here. So one of the details we've got is this section here, which looked okay when I had just a single line of fences, but looking back from afar, it just looked very like blank and bland, and it looked too empty for where it was, which, like, for up here we've got the single line, which works because it helps filter down the empty shape a bit, it kind of blends in a little bit more. But over here where it's all very packed and dense, having a very blank spot right here just didn't make sense. So to combat that, I was like, oh, we'll try and just place a bunch of these fences just back to back. And it worked really well. Now, you don't notice it if you're looking. Let's see if I can get a good angle. No, probably not. I mean, if you look dead on, you can't even notice. Like, it's straight, the exact same as it looks with just the single fence. However, it's so unlikely that you'll be looking at it directly head on that when you turn from side to side, it makes that weird kind of, it almost goes invisible in some spots, but it's a pretty cool effect for a shape like this and the silhouette that I was trying to do. Now up here is where the main detail is, and it's what I started with because I knew it was going to be the hardest section and I needed to be very intricate with the designs. And I also had to have a lot of these pokey uppy bits. And again, the nether brick having the fence and wall variant was incredibly helpful because when I wanted to do multiple spikes up to the sky, I was able to just put a wall in between and they wouldn't connect. Oh, but you can see there's a little bit of a connection, but that was, I promise, just because I moved this whole background back because it was a little bit too close and it was attached. So technically these don't count. And yes, we've got the chains right at the top to have that very thin element, and it's pretty good because it's so thin you don't really notice the color change from back here, and honestly when you look at it from afar you don't really notice it at all. But it's such a subtle difference that it gives almost like a sketched or painted effect, which is what I wanted to go for, and it was inspired off of the concept art that I was using. Now I really had to try and do some interesting things because although we have quite a lot of blocks in Minecraft, I was very limited as to what I could do detail-wise. So we've got this cool cross section here, which I guess is some kind of supports, but I've had to like put some chains and nether brick fences together and do this like cool pattern with nether brick stairs. And honestly, although this whole section was very hard to get the intricate detail that I desired for the build, it was super fun to do. Just kind of putting random things all over the shop to try and make a cool pattern here and there really was quite exciting and pretty fun. Although I will admit it was a little bit annoying having to continuously fly back and have a look at it from afar, but this is with most builds, to be honest. So yes, because we've got the intricate detail but still pretty empty spot at the top, because the idea was this was partly built or it was broken down, and obviously the top would be broken down first, especially in this concept. As you go down, it's a lot more dense, and the concept art pieces that I was using to reference some of the shape and idea of the build were very full near the bottoms of the buildings, but that was also because they had quite a lot, because most of them were very cityscape, whereas this is just a single build. However, I still tried to get this idea by just making this very flat. It's not got a lot in there. And there were a few things that happened when I did this. So you also probably saw in the time lapse that I had an original gradient, which was with soul sand and shroom lights, I think. Maybe not. It was with a bunch of random stuff, and I was trying it out because I wanted to get a bit of a foggy effect. But then I realized I kind of had it the wrong way around. I should have had the darkest block, which in that case would have been the nether brick, down the bottom, and then the lighter blocks up the top. But then that made me run into another problem, which was the fact that if the lighter blocks were on top, I don't have access to my fence and stairs and wall and all of the detail that I really wanted to get done. So I had to scrap that idea and start fresh, so I decided to just do the silhouette, and that meant I needed some darker spots at the bottom. Now there is a section here which looks a bit strange with the black wool, because I originally just had this coal block going straight into the, I think it's black terracotta here? Yes. But it just felt like it was missing something, and I realized pretty quickly that there's not really any blocks that go very well between these two. I tried blackstone, but it had too much of a purple effect, and the black wool also doesn't really go that well because it's a bit too light. But there's nothing really in the middle, so I tried to make this as thin as possible so it's not super noticeable, and I don't think it really is. And if anything, it gives a bit of a foggy type effect. So it's there, but limited by blocks in Minecraft. But yes, this whole bottom section was a bit of a chore and difficulty to do because I needed to balance it out. So originally the shape did not have this little extra section, and it felt so unbalanced because if you try and cut out, oh my goodness, I put my hand on the screen like you guys can see it, but if you cut out this whole section here, it feels like the whole building is just gonna topple that way. So I really had to try and add something here to balance it out. So this, I guess, could be like a water tank or gas tank or some cylinder, maybe powering this building. And I just added it to the side, but because originally I had it attached without anything in the middle, kind of connecting it here and giving that empty section or more of a half built, it just looked too flat and undetailed. So that's why I broke a hole here basically and just added a bunch of weird things. And you can see we've got lots and lots of very strange detail sections with fences and chains and all sorts. But it's a bit more densely packed and it goes a little bit deeper compared to the ones at the top. Now I think directly after I added that, I realized this side looked a bit bland compared because I had all of these details and cool things and I didn't have anything really on this side. So I added this detail. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, half of this stuff is just detail. I was just looking at it and seeing how can I make this silhouette look as industrial and built as possible. I can't really explain half of the stuff here or what it would be or really anything. I think if I really looked into it, I probably could find some definitions for each thing. But the main point of this was to try and get a silhouette and shape that I was happy with in the end, and I am very happy with this in the end. Now the background, we'll just touch on the background quickly. I wanted to give a bit of a dusky, sunsetty look, but I realized pretty quickly Minecraft has like maybe 3 good orange blocks. It's just not many, and the rest is stripped birch, which is just a bit too yellow, and otherwise it's way too dark. Like hay bales here near the jack-o'-lanterns, they're so different. Why are they next to each other? It's just because Minecraft doesn't really have any. So to combat that, I had to do a bit of a glass, not gradient, but I had to layer it so I had a bit of an orange tone, because without this orange glass and the white glass behind it, it's just, I don't know, the sandstone is a bit too yellow in comparison to the mushroom stem, and the mushroom stem is a bit too, I don't know, like orangey maybe? What color would you call that? Maybe still a little bit green, but in comparison to the clay. But overall, like the colors do fit, or the types of blocks do fit, the way that they're shaded. It's just their undertones and general color just did not fit correctly, which is why I had to add the glass. So by just adding that layered glass over it, it's given that orange tint, and I love the background. I'm not super happy with this weird shape I've got here, but you win some, you lose some. It's not the main part of the build, but I thought it was just interesting to elaborate on. So yeah, this is the final build. This is the whole thing. Pretty nice. I liked this. This was so much fun to build. I've wanted to dabble into something similar to this since I did the burnt house, and I've got a few more ideas of this weird detailing stuff. I just find it super cool and it's really fun to mess around with. But yes, I hope you enjoyed the build and the time-lapse and everything, and I hope my explaining did some justice. Again, I know I've had some questions about tutorials for builds like these, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm building these. I'm just putting things in spots where I think it could look slightly cool, but overall I've got no plan. But yes, I strongly encourage anyone to try out these builds though, because genuinely it's so much fun. Maybe you'll find that it's a style that you really like, and well, I mean, that's perfect in Minecraft. So yes, I hope you enjoyed the video and the build. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I always love to see what people come up with after they see these videos. So yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Yeah, see you next time. Bye!